I was born and brought up in a place called Jamshedpur in Bihar. Being a South Indian, I was always referred to as a Madrasi. And there was a popular belief that Madrasis are very intellectual, not very physically strong, and are more known to be culturally inclined as opposed to defending. And as a child, I always wanted to fight all those misconceptions. I always wanted to prove that I'm as physically strong and I can be as big a rowdy as they expected me to. But although there was a great amount of loving exception, sort of accepting on their behalf, I was always told to go and get my domicile from Tamil Nadu because I'm a Tamilian. I found the maximum love in Bihar. Absolutely, the people were incredibly loving, but I was always a Madrasi. When I went to Chennai and Tamil Nadu for my college admission, due to various sorts of discrimination that existed in the state, I wasn't able to get admission. I was always a non-Tamilian who came from Bihar, who was born and brought up in Bihar. I said, okay, I had the good luck and good fortune to go to Canada as an exchange student. Over there, I was always the Indian who was different from the rest of the people. When I came back and I studied in Kolhapur, I was always the Bihari who has come from Bihar to line marafai all the girls in Maharashtra. Because of the community that I belonged to, I was always discriminated against, saying, yeah, ye banda Bihar ka hai, careful road. And we were always put into a box. When I went from Bihar to Bombay, from Kolhapur to Mumbai, to I came to Bombay to teach. And I became an actor by chance. I was always the non-industry actor who's come from outside, who wants to be an actor, and he's an actor from Bihar. When I got a chance to do my debut film with the iconic director Mr. Maniratnam in Tamil, I was this Hindi actor from Bombay who was come to do a Tamil film. When I started doing Tamil films and they did really well, and then I got an opportunity to do Rehna Hai Dil Mein in Bombay, I was a Tamil actor from the south who's come to do a Hindi film. And now they're all very confused about who I really am. They all know that I don't belong to any one place for sure. If my journey with God's grace had not been so successful, and I'm not sitting here in front of you for whatever reason, then I have so many excuses for my failure. I could have told you that this has happened to me in Bihar, that's why I couldn't make it, or this happened to me in Kolhapur, I couldn't make it. But the truth of the matter is that if you had the substance, then the public cared for you. The audiences loved you. And when they loved you, and when they loved you, there's very little that people who are trying to box you can do about it. And the reason that people try to box you is because you're an anomaly. You're coming there and you're threatening everything that they know about the business. You're threatening every popular belief and theorem and theories and traditions that exist in an industry. And when that happens, the people holding guard get very defensive because you're uprooting their ideas and thereby uprooting them. And so, one doesn't want to go into a situation like this always revolting. One doesn't want to go into a place like this always trying to say, I'm proving a point. If you do what you have to do with a lot of respect, even a confrontation is encapsulated in a decent conversation. In a conversation that is not offending and the choice of words are such that it does not insult people, then the outcome of such a debate is very positive. I've realized that I have managed to get further more in my career, despite my background, despite the discrimination, only because I could deal with people with respect. If you didn't raise your voice or if you didn't insinuate exactly what they were insinuating to you, if you took their insults in a stride, at the same time showed them respect, but put your point across firmly. All these were great grounds for me to make and hold ground in all these new environments that I was challenged in.
So then, talking about these challenged environments, From the outside, we just feel like, oh, Madhavan, so successful. He just went from this industry to this industry, and that's it, and he became a big actor. And today, sitting and listening to you and just understanding from your point of view also, like talking about these boxes that you face, these challenges that you faced. How did you really then deal, especially with the boxes? I know that you said that there were kind words, love and respect, and that gets you such a long way as well. But did you ever then feel at any point, कि, yaar, I'm feeling a little defeated right now. Maybe I should just stick to this industry only and not venture? Were there any of those moments then?
It's a fantastic question, ma'am, and thank you for asking me that. Yes, people say that when you travel a lot, and I have been very lucky in my young age to have traveled around the world twice by the time I was 21. They say when you travel a lot, you learn a lot about the world. But the truth of the matter is, when you travel a lot and you meet cultures and you meet people and you meet situations, you learn a lot about yourself more than any of these things. You learn where to stand back and give respect to tradition. You learn to stand back and understand where the person is coming from because of his conditioning. The example I can give you is, I'm a Tamilian hardcore vegetarian, worshipping all the gods in the world possible, and at 17 or 18, and I'm put in this small town called Stettler in Canada. The main job of that town was meat. So I was living with cowboys, and every day in the morning, my job was to get up at 4:30 in the biting, freezing cold of -25, -30, a totally alien atmosphere for me. And then, take a knife and cut the bales of hay so that I can feed the cows and the goats and, excuse me. So these cows used to be, in the yard, and I used to name them. This is Sundar, or this is Vijay, and this is Sham, and whatever. And Salah Sham ko dekha ki Sham wapas aaya hi nahi. And I realized that, man, it become somebody's lunch. And it was part of their culture. So however much I was aghast and so horrified at what is happening on a daily basis, because for them it was a normal lifestyle. I used this in a movie of mine called I the Earth. It was made in Hindi, called Yuva. And Mani Ratnam didn't think that I was ready for that role because I was playing all these lover boys. So I remember when I went to meet him, and he said, Maddie, this role, he had Siddharth's role for me, the one that Vivek Oberoi played in Hindi. And he said, that's the role for you. I said, no, I'm very tired of playing all these love boy roles. Please give me the other one, Abhishek's role. And he said, no, I can't, you don't look like that kind of guy. So I said, give me 1 month. Give me 1 month, and if I don't satisfy you with what I'm going to present to you, then I'm okay to do whatever you tell me. Here's the crux of the issue, right? There's a lovely saying that whatever you're doing is worth doing well, and you have to commit yourself to it. And knowing yourself, you know how to commit yourself, Knowing myself, if I took it lightly, I know over a period of time I'd have taken it and said, Janigo. But the first thing I did when I left Mani Ratnam's office to commit myself to that role was to go to the barber shop and become completely bald. Because I figured that monster of a guy would be somebody who would be rugged looking and won't have enough time for his hair and everything. So I actually shaved off my hair. So now till the bloody hair goes back, I have no other job happening except this movie. I asked Mani Ratnam, what is it about this character you think doesn't suit me? He said, Mani, that man is an animal. That's what do you mean he's an animal? He said, Mani, he's an animal now, that's it. He kills, it's his job. That's all he told me. I couldn't figure out what he meant, and I couldn't understand how I'm going to translate this into getting into the role that I wanted. But for 1 month, I remember going out in the sun every day, playing golf. I used this as an excuse to learn and play golf, which is very good. And then for 1 month, I got completely sunburned. I worked out, I built up my physique. And every day in the evening, and this was in 2003, I think, I used to watch National Geography at night, just to see what is it in an animal that Mani sir is looking for. And I happened to see this documentary, I'm sure all of you have seen it, many times over, about how lions lionesses, actually the lions don't attack and kill the prey, the lionesses do. And how they form this whole branch and how they. And there was this scene where they had cornered the deer and the deer was running for its life. Okay? And there was this lioness running behind it with full speed. They were taking close-ups of both the animals. In the eyes of the deer was fear, was complete death, was I have to run for my life. In his world, this was I have to run for my life. And there was fear writ large over those eyes. And behind that was his lioness, who was running behind that deer with the same amount of intensity. She jumps on the back of the deer, brings it to the ground, bites its neck, suffocates it, kills it, and the deer is suffering, like quivering over there as the life is being squeezed out of its neck. And eventually they all bite into it and finish it off. But throughout that process, you know what the difference was? The deer had the fear of death in the eyes. The lioness was just going for breakfast. It was not angry. It was creating this act of killing. It was doing the most violent act that we see as human beings. But there was no anger. It was not doing it out of anger, nor were the lions. They just came there, they killed it, they ate the meat, and they left because that was a normal breakfast for them. And that's the lesson I took for either the Inba's character. That he would kill with no emotion, no anger. That is his job. And so after 1 month, with that attitude, when I went to meet Mani sir, the guards who used to protect him didn't recognize me. They said, sir, I want to meet Mani sir. Then I smiled and they said, Madhavan sir. And I said, yeah. I said, please don't tell Mani sir that it's me who's come. And it was lunchtime. He hates to be bothered during lunch. So I went at that time. And then he had his lunch and he said, what? He said, somebody's come to see you. Who's come to see me? I don't know, sir, but he looks like a friend of yours. So he comes out and he says, yes. And I'm just looking at him. Like, well, who's this man? What does he want? I'm still looking at him. And then I couldn't control my laughter, so I started smiling. And he said, Maddie. I said, yes, sir. He called me inside. He was just looking at me. And long story short, I got to do that role. So answering your question, you have to put yourself in a corner when you know you want to take that leap. It's never going to happen by giving yourself many options for failure, or even options for committing towards that what you're trying to achieve. And so I've always found out that I have to push myself into a corner. So I have done the equivalent of getting myself bald many times over to get the roles and get to the places that I want to.
Is that something that you learned over time? Or we all wait for that big moment. We wait for that inshallah moment when that opportunity will come and it will knock at my door. And they say that when the opportunity comes, you better be ready for it. And when the opportunity came and it knocked at your door, did you always have this attitude? Or were you kind of like, is this something that you learned on the job? And when that opportunity came, what did you do to prepare yourself and just grab it and say, now my moment's come?
So we've heard many times before that luck is when the right opportunity meets the right preparation, right? And that's a constant endeavor. There is never a state in your life that you can stop learning. And there's never a moment in your life that you can stop arming yourself. So in today's world especially in today's world, that moment happens every other moment. Your opportunities for extreme success and failures are around the corner. And people who don't believe it don't see it. People who are prepared enough and believe it will see it happen. So the synergy of the right opportunity meeting the right preparation, it happens with your faith of making that happen, of knowing that will happen, having a dream that constantly is there with you all the time. It is not restricted to people in the lower strata of the company. It is actually relevant to almost everybody today, because I will tell you what and in continuation to the last question you asked me, see, these moments are extraordinary. Okay, at the pace with which the world is changing today, any man who takes a little bit of things for granted for a second, suddenly realizes that it becomes irrelevant. Okay, in today's world, when we were in college, it was easy to see what we want to do for the next 10 years. In today's world, the company does not know whether the policies will hold for the next 10 months. In today's world, large companies around the world are able to fire its employees in tens of thousands. And this is my personal experience and my personal opinion, and I want to come to this. And I really think that is because the huge cultural change that has happened in corporate world around in the West especially has resulted in one major word that has gone missing from their culture, okay, which India still has. And I will talk about that word in a minute. This word defines who we are as a company, as a country, the way we function. And today, if we are really flying high in terms of every aspect of a nation, compared to the people around the world, compared to the nations around the world, then one of the reasons is this word. And I am going to say this because I grew up with the Tatas. I was a Tata boy, and I remember the reverence with which we used to treat the bosses, how my parents treat. If you look at a Tata employee's house, even now, my father worked in the same company all his life, from the time he entered to the time he retired, which is of course a long forgotten situation or a tradition. But even now in my house, there is Jamshedji Narsarbaji Tata's photo with a mala on it. Even now, that's the kind of devotion that people had for their companies. It's become a great practice nowadays to say that we are trying to create equality in the office space, following very strictly with the Western culture, right? And so an employee is allowed to call his boss by his first name because it gives him a sense of equality. But I think that gives him a sense of false entitlement. And that is a very dangerous place to be, because you can't join a company and call Elon or call Mark and their first name, and because of your conditioning you start feeling that you're at par with them. And so what happens is you decide that it's okay to call him boss, so there is no, and everybody believes that there is equality because everybody is sitting on the same table and taking those decisions and everybody is being heard and everything. But the truth of the matter is, one guy over there is the boss who's taking all the risky decisions, who's going to bear the brunt or the fruit of what the outcome of his labor is. He's the one who's actually, standing in the front and on the front line and taking the bullets. You're not going to be feeling entitled, and you can't equate yourself to him. So I dare you to go and to walk into a Tata office and call Mr. Ratan Tata Ratan and see how the rest of the people talk to you. It's years of respect that is earned. Try going to that and And so what happens is, with this sense of entitlement, when you take up your job, then everything else becomes as equally distracting. The job is not the job. I read a statement somewhere by a big a guy who put it on his Instagram, saying the Indian employee finds a lot of satisfaction in long hours of laborious work and unhealthy work and work atmosphere and unhealthy hours. And that has to change. I tell him, boss, your first 3 words in that sentence is your answer, man. Finds a lot of satisfaction. He's satisfied in working hard. He knows that's what makes the company work. Why are you taking away satisfaction from that? And the thing is, the moment you want to work from home and you want to adapt this culture and say, I'm going to work from home, I'm entitled to do this, I'm entitled to do that, then what happens is, you're not having a personal interaction. As a boss, I do not know what you're doing for the sake of the company, how you're speaking, how you're dealing with other people, what your other qualities are apart from just the deliverables that you're doing. And so it becomes so easy for me to fire you. Because if I'm just going to look at, I have to fire 1,000 employees, you're just names on the list. And so tap, 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 you're gone. And in the world today, you're gone is going to become a very, very, very constant and popular process. So I'm going to take a little longer to answer this question. Because
and if you don't mind, I'm going to stand up because over a period of time I've realized this is really important for me. I know a lot of people here are, looking at how to enhance their careers and what success will mean to them. And I'll tell you how I've defined that for myself. So I have good news and I have not so good news. The good news is that because of the advancement in medical technology, there's a great possibility that all of you here will be kept alive till you're at least 90 years old. You might have a sugar problem, a BP problem, but if you're fairly healthy and you're doing your yogas and your spirituality and whatever it takes to stay healthy and eating right, you will definitely be alive till your late 80s or 90s, which is a good thing. The not so good thing is that, the first 30 years of your life is beautifully charted. Your parents, once they give birth to you, know which school you have to go to, how many siblings you have, what school you should go to, which area they should buy the house in, which college you have to go to. So the first 30 years, IIT kar lo, you finish everything, then this is the community you want to get married to, you are in love with a girl, okay, let's find that. So your first 30 years beautifully charted. School, college, job, family, starting of the family, start investing in your first house and be set for a certain period, the first 30 years. The next 30 years is also equally charted, though slightly in the doldrums today because of the changing environment, but you consolidate on what you've built up. So you enhance on the job that you've done. You want to make sure that the kid is now going to college, you're saving for him. You're thinking about your parents' health, which is an important part of your life. You're thinking about your children's health, that's an important part of your life. Where are you going to invest for your retirement property? What are you going to invest in terms of getting your money back and staying financially independent once you retire? And then how do you build up who your kids should marry, where they should settle down? All that is again beautifully charted. And then you hit 60 years old and you retire, and it's a hard stop. And then the next 30 years of your life is not charted, brother. You don't know what you're going to do for the next 30 years. It's equally important. In fact, the most important 30 years of your life, your heaven and hell, the fruits of your labor, yours. Because let me tell you, there is no curse on earth worse than living in an environment where you're considered irrelevant. Where you're considered Buddha, so is your idea of heaven that of a Westerner, where you want to get into a caravan with your wife and travel around the whole of the Americas and the Canadas and only meet your grandchildren for every Thanksgiving and Christmas? Is that your idea of heaven? Or do you want to be respected in the community that you live in? Where have you invested for your next 30 years in terms of your commitment to the society that you're going to be living in? Look around you. How many of these people would you like to have as your neighbors? How many of them can you trust? Do you think your children want to live with you? Do you think their spouses would want you to live with them? Do you want to stay in the same house? Do you want to stay in the same street? Do you want to be part of your grandchildren's life? Do your grandchildren want to be part of your life? All that becomes your heaven or hell. And that preparation starts now. Because you have to know when to work really hard and commit yourself to the job that you're doing. You have to know, most importantly, when to jump out of the bandwagon. And know what is important in your life at which point of time. Your investments have to be age appropriate. Your devotion, and again I'm coming back to that word that I'm talking about, the one word that the West has forgotten is devotion. In their corporate life, they have forgotten it. It does not have to be spiritual. It does not actually mean spiritual at all. But devotion to your job, to your family, to your colleagues, to the company that you work for. What do you, as an actor, the one thing that I feel really inadequate about is the fact that I wish I was part of a winning team. There's no more, an actor cannot create an euphoria that a Virat Kohli can create by hitting a six on the last ball of a match against a country that you really want to win. And he hits that last ball and it becomes a six and the entire nation celebrates you and at the same time with you with euphoria. As an actor, I can never create that. I can only do a movie and after I've acted and after 3 months, after I've acted somewhere, the film will be seen and be released, and over a period of time, the success will come in and settle down and impact me. So the whole collective idea to win as a team is so much more valuable than as an individual, that this will enrich the rest of your life. And as members of this organization, you know, you will be setting great goals, and I'm sure these goals sometimes seem unrealistic at times too. But you have to really believe that you're going to put in that effort to reach there. And I will finally come to this point that I'm saying. I had the good fortune of making a movie called Rocketry, which was my last film that I released. It was about a rocket scientist. But here's the fun part. I never wanted to be an actor. I became an actor by chance. I've never directed a movie in my life. I've never produced, and I've never written. When I went to meet Mr. Narayanan, who was one of the most outstanding gentlemen I've ever met in my life, his story was so overpowering and so empowering that I decided to write it and understand the rocket technology, and I ended up writing it. I produced it because there was nobody wanting to produce it. If you ask me a logical reason for doing all this, a tangible reason of the risks, I will tell you I had nothing except a vision. There is no reason why I should have produced it or written it. And then when I decided to produce it, I found the people who were ready to invest with me, and they came along. But the shocking fact was, with so much money at stake, my director, who was supposed to direct the film, could not direct it at the last minute, so he had to walk out of the film. Now the question was, do I take the 14 crores that I've invested in the film so far and throw it down the drain? Because no other director was ready to come and was qualified to direct that film? Or do I take the plunge that I think life had prepared me for all these days, not me knowing it, is becoming director. Now becoming a director means having the proficiency in all the departments of filmmaking that exist for making this film. And I had none of it. As an actor, my job was to come on the set and say, where are the lines? What are the dialogues? Who am I dancing with? Who's the heroine? Oh, she's pretty. Great job. Can I have my money? Back up, gone home, spent my money. But a director's job and a producer's job is much more greater than that. You take pixel after pixel after pixel. You take one shot and you put it together, and then you make a movie and you hope that, like the magic of cinema, the only thing in the world that can take a group of people, make them sit in the room in front of a silver screen and create emotions that are so real that it ends up making you cry, laugh, sob, or angry. It's a spectacular. For me, it's magic. You know, how does one screen make you do that? But collectively, a director feels like God, because he says, laugh, and you're all laughing. And he says, cry, and everybody's in tears. So that is the kind of magic you have to create, the realism you have to create when you do a movie. And those pixels are so important. I jumped at the fact that I'm going to be directing this film. My investors said, Maddie, you're qualified enough to do it. My Mr. Narayanan thought I was ready to do it. But the fact remained it was a large budget film. And I've never directed anything in my life. And I was going to direct this film in Tamil, English, and Hindi. We were going to shoot in 8 countries. We were going to shoot live sound, which means the dialogues won't be dubbed. And these challenges, no modern filmmaker has actually taken on in the world. Let me tell you that. In the world. Yeah, and although I don't have enough time to tell you about all the things we did, radical things, but I'm broaching that subject because I remember hearing one of the biggest directors talk about how he directed the film. He used to go and look at all the other directors working and wonder, why is the director saying, I'm not feeling it, I'm not getting it, there is no magic, let's do a retake. And this guy said, I didn't know why he was asking for a retake. I mean, the actor was saying his lines, she was reacting, capturing it. I don't know what was wrong, I don't know what magic they were looking for. Till he decided that he can't become an actor anymore, a director anymore, because he doesn't know what this magic means. Till he met an old man who said, boss, listen, your job as a director, as a head of a group or as a head of a company, but he told me, your job as a director
is to just have a vision, first of all, of what you want to tell. Know for sure exactly what you want to tell. Then go around and find people who are in that place in their lives that they're able to relate to what you're saying as a story. I might be a great guy, I might be going through divorce in my life, and you come and tell me a love story, I will do it for the money, but I'm not feeling any love for the woman in my life anymore. I'm completely wrong for that film. So I actually romance the people I work with. I take them out for dinner, I get them drunk. I want to know how they behave. I want to know if they are in that place in their lives that qualifies them to be a big anchor part of this project. And they could be the most qualified or the most unqualified people, but they could be in that space in their lives which makes them appropriate for this film. And then he said, once you find those people, just share your vision with them and let them be. Give them the freedom to achieve what they want to do, because if you found the right people, they will do a much better job than you expected. And with God's grace, in Rocketry, I found such an extraordinary, brilliant team. I'm going to give you statistics to tell you, explain to you what I mean as a project. A film like Rocketry with all the VFX and everything, and that too in one language, the budget should be around 45 to 50 crores. Because we're shooting it in 8 countries, we're making rocket paths. It's a period film, which means we have to create 1965, 1965, 1985 in one language. And then if you're doing this in 3 languages, then it should be around 85 or 90 crores, because now you have the big actors in it. You have very, very big actors from the West doing the film. And a normal film, which is only shot in one language of this magnitude, takes about 55 to 60 days to shoot. So you're talking about a budget of about 80 crores. You're talking about one language takes about 55 to 60 days. If you shoot it in 3 languages, then you're talking about 90 days, because you have to have all the actors come in. One line has to be said in English, the next line has to be said in Hindi, the third line has to be said in Tamil. And then they have to go out and the other actor has to come in. Every day, this is what the shooting was. This is what is expected from a normal production. When I found my team, I completely rewrote how production has to be done. So believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, what should have been shot in 1995 days, the entire shooting of Rocketry was done in 3 languages in 41 days. It was, no, I could charge the money I could afford it for companies, because they believed that we took that much time. The budget, unfortunately I can't reveal it out publicly, but it was a third of what people thought it should cost. A third. And I got it. And why am I telling you this? Because one of the most important jobs that I found that I had to do during the shooting of Rocketry was to fire people. I had taken up close friends to do certain departments because they were very proficient, they had earned their medals, but they were close friends and they said, we will do this. And I had, on the other hand, met people and actually made them part of the team, till I realized that although they were fantastic at their jobs, the one department that came into the office one day and took over one whole section of the office, told the other guys to buzz off, saying, we came here earlier, we want to sit in this part of the office. They wanted to get their dogs in and everything and make it into a nice atmosphere and everything. And I found the rest of the departments were skirting around them because they were so assertive. The first thing I did was to call that entire department to my office and say, guys, it's not going to work out. I paid them. In Rocketry, I spent 87 lakhs just to send people away. Just to send them away. With respect, saying it's not going to work out because you and I are not looking at the same project. It's not about what you can deliver as your core competence, but it's the attitude with which you're coming into the film and what you're expecting to get out of it. There was a department that was supposed to do the costumes, and I had budgeted 25 lakhs for the scientists' clothes. And I realized on the first schedule after 8 days that I spent 11 lakhs.
So I'm saying, guys, how is this happening? It is not a question about expenditure, but why is there 11 lakhs gone on clothes for the scientists from ISRO? And I was told by one of the assistants from the costume department that they were doing these films for Yash Raj and Dharma, that they have to maintain a minimum standard. So they were getting Alan Solly pants and shirts for my scientists. Because of their conditioning. It was not like they were trying to, they thought they were doing right for the project because everybody involved in the film should look a certain way. So they were not wrong. Their beliefs was not wrong. They were not doing they were not cheating me. But their conditioning was such that a minimum requirement has to be maintained, and that was looking wrong on my film. So I had to tell them, thank you very much. Here's your 30 lakhs that I promised you. But we can't work like this. I don't have the time. I don't know, this is my first film, whether I'm doing the right thing or not. But I need to find somebody who sees the film I'm seeing. Replace that. There are 6 departments I had to replace. And they're all still very close friends of mine. But that decision helped me make the movie that I set out to make. And that was a crucial decision. Letting the department do what they wanted to do after finding that they were in tandem with the idea was the biggest lesson that I learned. Most people try to mollycoddle the team and try to over manage, try to micromanage how the things have to be done. You're never going to get the creativity out of them. In fact, you're going to lose their interest. And rocketry on that front was a huge learning example. And I realized that it doesn't matter what sort of a cliff you're standing in front of. If I don't have one climbing gear, if I just believe that I can climb, I will be on the top of it. And for that, I'm very grateful for this movie.
We can stand and do this interview.
I'm okay with this now.
Okay. Yeah. I just want you to be as comfortable as possible, and really rocketry did go on to break so many records, and a big congratulations for the work that you did on that. A personal favorite of what went down for me also was the transformations that all of y'all did, down to like the teeth and putting on weight and losing weight, that kind of detailing that did go in. We've spoken about you as the captain of a ship, because we're talking about your role right now. We were talking as a director. But what I'd now like to also talk about is the role of a mentor. You had 2 films. Please pardon my Tamil,
That's
because
right.
I may not say this correctly, and so I have to refer to this. Irudu Sutru?
Iridi Sutru. Yeah.
Iridi Sutru. And of course in Sala Kharus, which both those films, you played the mentor, where you were a mentor to a young girl who was going on to become a boxer. And I know that now you are also playing mentor in real life. Your son, and he deserves a very big round of applause right now, because he's going on to make so many records for our nation. Let's talk a little bit about that, because from playing a character that was mentoring, you're now also doing that in real life.
I wish I had an authority to actually take credit for all that is happening with my son. Actually, it belongs to my wife. But more importantly, let me tell you that like all parents and as all mentors, we're extremely nervous. This is uncharted territory for us. Nobody from my family has been a sportsman. And nobody actually imagined that there would be a career for somebody. It was unthinkable for a South Indian Brahmin family to imagine that sports is going to be part of your culture. But I had the good fortune, like I said, of traveling the world. And I was in a small town called Stettler in Canada, where I was staying as an exchange student. Unfortunately, at that time, one of the cities that was considered as a teenage pregnancy capital of Canada was Stettler. It had a lot of drug problem, it had a lot of pregnancy problem. I couldn't understand how people were getting into it and why they were getting into it. I had to stay with 5 different families. I stayed with cowboys, I stayed with dentists, I stayed with veterinarians and all sort of things. And in one family, I noticed that the children were very different. That one family had 5 children, and they were very straightforward,
not into drugs, pretty much lived a, a very different and sanitized and sane life compared to the rest of the people in that community. And I couldn't understand what was different about that family. 20 years later, when I went back to meet that family and I had my son, I sat down with the lady of the house and I said, "What did you do right, JD? What was it about your upbringing that your children didn't do the same silly things that others were doing at that time?" And she whispered a secret in my ears, which I followed very, very, very carefully. And she says, "Don't give your child free time." She said, "Make sure that when the child is from 3 years old to 13 years old, when they say don't give him free time, it didn't mean don't give him freedom. It said don't give them free time." So as a parent, your job was to make sure that the child's day was full of activities, either that he liked to do or the one that he had to do. So if he was interested in anything, then make sure that the classes were there. And she used to drive. Her job was to drive to the class, back, to the class and back, one way or the other. And she kept them busy. And that's one thing we decided to keep Vedant doing, is keep him busy. Fortunately for us, the core competency was very clear because he used to get up at 4 in the morning and go swimming. He loved swimming. So, we tried to make him play cricket and basketball and football and everything that normal sports people do. But he was a water baby. We were quick to understand that. So when he expressed his interest in swimming when he was 8, 9 years old, it meant that either Sarita or me had to get up every day from then for the next 10 years at 4 in the morning. So our lives was revolved around Vedant's going to sleep at 8 o'clock and getting up at 4 o'clock, going to the pool, bringing him back, taking him to school, bringing him back. We could have kept a driver to do this, but my wife was very clear that she's not letting any man drive her son at 4 in the morning, not knowing whether what time he has gone to sleep. So that responsibility fell with me and Sarita. Now the thing I wanted to say is, I do not know how successful Vedant will become eventually, whether he will manage to get his dreams or not. But one thing I know for sure, that in his younger age, we've managed to give him grit, the ability to do something over and over again and with discipline, right? So that is one of the things that we wanted to do, and I think the only thing that we can take credit for right now. He has a long way to go. He's only 17. Being my son, he gets undue attention, which is something that we try to, make him realize it's extremely temporary. But apart from that, I think as a mentor, it's very, very important to understand the attitude of your protege and what you're trying to do. So I remember Maniratnam being my mentor. He is my Maniratnam. Mani sir is my mentor. And he used to say, you're not going to be the cliche hero in Tamil. Because no matter what you do, on your face, you can't play a hungry beggar who's uneducated. There's nothing that Arvind Swami and Madhavan can do that make us look like hungry beggars. This education is written all over the place. So you have to understand that, boss, this is not the role you want to play just because you want to relate your acting skills. So those kind of words that mentors do, and the mentors understanding who we are and putting things in front of you in a manner that you will understand, was one thing that I learned very earlier on in my life. So the other secret that I can tell you as parents that we adopted for Vedant was, we never talked to him like he was a child. I think you realize that youngsters today are far more mature than we can ever imagine being at their age. And so, how are you doing? My ball doesn't work with him at all. From the time he was 3 years old, he used to look at people who used to do that with him, like, you were talking normally to my father, why are you talking to me like this? So, we always treated him as an adult, explained to him like an adult, and somehow he understood. So now that relationship of a child and a parent was very short-lived in our relationship. He was always an adult.
And I have to say, you all are doing a fantastic job with everything and encouraging him so much, Like you just mentioned a little earlier, coming from your background, you never thought that, okay, so there would be somebody that would want to be a swimmer, and a professional swimmer, going on to represent our country, a sport that the country doesn't really pay so much attention to, but now we know that there's a lot of attention that is going in that direction. Let's talk a little bit about consistency. You were actually faced with this very early in your career because Minale, got it correct? Alright. Minale was your first movie in Tamil, big hit. Then was made into Rehna Hai Teri Dil Mein, again massive hit that happened in Bollywood industry. And both of them came out in 2001, so they both followed each other immediately. And how does one deal with that pressure? Because now you've given this one super hit. You're now doing Rehna Hai Teri Dil Mein, big foray that's going to take place. I know that you did do another role before that in Bollywood, but this was your big role that you were going to play. That kind of pressure and following on the heels of something like that, do you think about that? How does one really cope with that?
Like all Hollywood actors, I wish we had the liberty that if we had 2 hits in our lives, the residuals of that movie keeps you financially secure for the rest of your life. That doesn't happen in India anymore, or ever. And so, the top actors can have 2 hits, 3 hits, and they're settled for 2, 3 lifetimes because the residuals are so good. In India, we still have to work for bread and butter. But having said that, the consistency has to become second nature. It cannot be restricted to a certain moment in your life. It is the approach that you have for a project. So for me, at the stage that I'm in right now, it's very easy. So let me tell you this, in terms of consistency. First, I've been in the industry for 23 years now. For the first 10 years of my life, I did almost 77 films. Because I wasn't advised correctly. 77 films because I was told, because of my conditioning, that if you don't have a film at hand, everybody will think you're out of the market. So you should do a film every 3 months. And I said, I'll do 4 films every 3 months. So I did 77 films in the first 10 years. And the last 10 years, I've done 4 films. And I've realized that my stature and my ability to impact people and my career has done much better in the last 10 years with 4 films, which was basically Sala Kadus or Iridi Sutru, Vikram Veda, Tanu Weds Manu Returns, and Rocketry. So in 12 years, literally, these are only 4 films that I have done. And I'm in a better position in my career today than I ever was. So consistency was the first part of consistency is to understand where you're standing. So COVID came and I realized that, boss, the public is not going to accept what we as a film industry have started to assume is the norm. So, taking on subjects like Decoupled, for instance, or Breathe, or Rocketry, or Vikram Veda, were to break that trend. When I did that, they say in the army, the first man through the wall gets the bloody nose. So I had a bloody nose all the time. People were kept saying, you can't do it, it's impossible. Rocketry in 42 days, impossible. Okay, but the consistency was not in the habit, the consistency was in the soul. The more they said it's not possible, I wanted to know what about it, about their conditioning is making them feel that this is impossible. So if I broke that, my path became easier. So I just had to do that, and so over a period of time you will realize that norms become the way forward because that's tradition and that's how it has to be done. Any company that questions those norms is the one that's taking the first step in the right direction. Everybody knows, and I don't need to preach to the choir. Ladies and gentlemen, populating another planet, traveling celestial bodies in the next 20 years is not a far-off dream. The world as we speak right now is preparing for it. How many space stations to build from here to Mars? When to explode a nuclear bomb there to increase the temperature over there, and how long will the radiation go? These are realistic ideas that are being discussed. And therefore, the world is now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with ChatGPT and the potential of such a tool in your hands, but every department that you're working in, from button manufacturing to food, to nutrition, to textile, to plasma, to fungal studies, are all oriented to space travel now.
and everything has to be redefined. Everything has to be reconstructed. So we're living in an extraordinary age of development. And one of the things that's going to make you win that race is a consistency with which you follow the diktat of making those products. So if you, most companies are running so fast ahead that they don't take one moment, which I think is very important, which is to consolidate. It cannot just be a linear graph that you keep going up. Consistency makes you understand that you have to have a plateau at one point of time to consolidate that you've just become a billion-dollar company. Now you have to become a trillion-dollar company, but you have to consolidate this position. And targets are set in that, and with those things in mind. If individual greed and ambition cannot be the policy of a company. And so, if you have the right consistent effort towards excellence, this problem is easily solved.
So, you touched upon my next question in the answer that you just gave right now, because we're only talking about consistency and we're talking about success and we're talking about being on top of the game. But they also say that what goes up sometimes does come down. And was there any moment that you faced in your career where that was adverse and maybe something that really tested your resilience? I know a little earlier you spoke about the boxes that you felt that you were being put in, but was there anything like that when you were really on top of your game and that came and then maybe put that little setback?
Every time. In fact, I love that aspect of my life. Because when you make a movie, literally it's like standing naked in front of the audience because you believe you've invested every conviction of yours in making a movie, right? And sometimes this valiant effort of yours is a big disaster on the very first day. It's a disaster. It's a flop. It's like somebody kicked you in your teeth. Your convictions get questioned. Your relevancy in the industry gets questioned. So how do I deal with it? In the same way that I deal with success. Is that one day, if my film is a blockbuster, that one day I will do obnoxious things. I will throw a party and I'll say I'm the best in the world, I will yell, scream, I'll get a couple of drinks, and I'll make sure everybody knows that I'm a rock star. I'll go to sleep. The next morning, I'm back on the ground, having erased everything that I've learned from the last film, feeling equally nervous. If the same thing happens in terms of a failure, then I feel miserable. My wife doesn't let anybody come close to me that day. I'm brooding, I'm yelling, I'm just a disgusting person. I'll have 3 baths, I just feel horrible. I'll go to sleep, and I come back the next day completely reset in the same way. But okay, that's in the past. Reset. What are we doing today? Completely new challenges, new environment, how to face it. That's work for me.
Somewhere do you also think the extra things that you engage in, and I'm talking about the fact that I know that you love long bike rides and you're an avid biker, also your golf that you have as well, and the gardening that you started in the lockdown. And somewhere do you also think that maybe these little extra things that we do other than just our work, they really kind of help us stay stable?
No, that's my research. As an actor, when you come to the industry, you're only surrounded by people from the industry. So your growth gets limited to people who are around you. What they talk, how they say, in the parties that you go to, what are things that are being discussed. And you realize that by and large, it's very constrained. It's not enough. Nobody wants to talk about ChatGPT, for instance. Nobody wants to talk about the fungal research that is instrumental in building roadways around complicated cities today. Those things that you only get to meet and talk with different age group of people from different diasporas. So when I go play golf, I meet businessmen and people who give me an insight into their lives. When I'm riding a bike, it's a different set of people. I get to understand ground realities a lot when I'm actually traveling by rickshaws or trains and meeting the people who are making my product for. And that research is extremely important. So for me, that is research more than anything else. It's very, 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 I can't emphasize enough on the importance of research.
And that's so interesting. I would have actually thought that that's something that, you would have turned around and said that it's important for us to have other things than our work. It's important for us. But you literally also look at these extra things that you do in your life. You also almost look at them as work or a part of your, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's a disgusting habit. I'm saying, you go to a funeral and somebody has lost their close ones, or somebody's just lost their dogs, and they're being told that news, and you want to sympathize as a human being, and you want to say how bad you're feeling, and sometimes the actor inside you suddenly is looking at the expression of the person who's just been told the bad news, and capturing that expression. And you feel so disgusted about yourself because you think, what is wrong with you? Are you inhuman? Can you not realize that the delicate nature of the emotion that is being, the situation is very right now? But inadvertently, you end up capturing that. As an actor, you're always looking at expressions and capturing it. Sometimes I feel horrible about it, but it's become second nature.
So you're always working, Maddie.
I think, yeah, one way or the other, yes, I am.
You're always working. And I saw that with you, when you walked in on set, every day when you were walking on set, you weren't just only thinking about okay, what is the scene? You were looking at every single aspect that was around us and everything that was being built around to make that scene. You're constantly working.
Yeah, I guess that's what I've understood about myself. That's the only way I can stay young. I think stagnancy will kill me. Yeah.
All right. Before you do leave, and thank you so much. You've really just opened your heart, your soul. You've spoken so candidly with everyone over here, and we really, really do appreciate that. But before you do leave today, was there any last message that you would like to give the entire ADFL family?
Well, I hope it's not the last message. It's just...
Your last message for here in this room. May I take those words back?
I think, first of all, thank you so much for staying up and listening to what I have to say for the past hour. After lunch in Kerala, that's a tall challenge, and I'm very flattered that you managed to stay awake. Secondly, I think that the world is changing at a very, very fast pace. Relationships are changing, the challenges of companies are changing, production lines are changing, everything. I have realized one of the most important things that I have learned over the past 10 years is unlearning. There are going to be a lot of unlearning that you'll have to do to stay relevant in the years to come. And that process is very difficult. So my last words for the day to you guys is that please hug the new changes that are coming, be part of it, unlearn as quickly as you can, and make sure that you're always and constantly researching, verifying the information that is being given to you. I'm sorry I'm coming back to ChatGPT, but for those of you who don't know the impact of what ChatGPT has done, this AI is, for instance, I gave a speech at Harvard, okay? Somebody went and said, on ChatGPT URL, that give me the synopsis of Madhavan's speech in Harvard. And in less than 30 seconds, that speech has been analyzed, verbalized, and written, and the gist of the speech is given to you. This is the speed at which research can be done. This is the speed in which judges can do the research for the judgments that will be passed over cases that have been going on for years. This is the speed at which people's lives will change, because before and after ChatGPT, and I'm telling you, this is a 12-hour transition. Before and after. Before ChatGPT, many people were writing codes and programs and situations and analysis and everything that used to take them 4 or 5 days. And one day ChatGPT gets introduced, and the next day, what was happening in 4 to 5 days was done in 4 minutes. This is how quickly the change is being ushered in. It had its few hiccups from the beginning, but this is how quickly information is going to be processed, and this is the world we're going to be living in. So I wish all of you happy unlearning, and thank you so very much for all the respect that you guys show me so far.